Yeah.
Hello everyone in the room, and hello everyone watching online, wherever you may be. And welcome to this very special, I don't even know what camera's looking, we're just with all angles of social and online covered. Welcome to this very special event. I'm Laura Whitmore, and we are here in MTV HQ in Camden for a very special event with three inspirational ladies I'm going to tell you about in just a little while. Last Wednesday was International Women's Day, and I think that it's great to still continue, every day really should be International Women's Day, and just to kind of carry on celebrating and talking about what it means to be a woman in 2017. This isn't just about me asking questions, we put it out to everyone watching online to ask questions, so if you're on Instagram or Facebook or any other social media, use hashtag SAFWomen. I have some questions already, but we will take some more. But right now I want to introduce the ladies that I've got here with me. First is, you may know her as Georgia Arnold. I know her as G. We decided that's what I'm going to call her now. And she is the Executive Director and Co-Founder of MTV Staying Alive Foundation. And Georgia, we're going to talk to you a little bit later about exactly everything it is, but a big round of applause for Georgia. And trustee and women's rights activist. I only met Mala at Tabit this morning, but I've read so much about you and some great words and blogs that you've written and some true inspirational words. Looking forward to talking to Mala in just a little while. Mala, really exciting because, you know, as MTV Staying Alive has been going around for so many years, and what's so great about MTV is just having people who can promote it on platforms and get that kind of word out there to so many different people. So it's with great pleasure that I get to welcome this lady, singer-songwriter and new ambassador for MTV Staying Alive Foundation, Leona Lewis. Now, I myself, it's great to be back here in MTV Studios because I know about 9 years ago I queued outside and entered a competition to be an MTV presenter as a little Irish girl over and you know, in London for one of the first few times, and this building means so much to me, and one of the first, I think it was my first year that I was with MTV, I found out about Staying Alive through you. And once Georgia gets you involved, you never say no. And I've seen the work and I've seen the reach that you have, and it's such a great charity, but I'd kind of like you to kind of tell me a little bit, because you've been there since day one.
I have. So next year's our 20th anniversary, which makes me really old. Much older than our audience, really. But we started 19 years ago with a documentary with George Michael. He hosted it, which I was so excited about because I got to meet George Michael, which was, I think that was it. I was happy to retire at that point. But it was a documentary about young people who were living with infected and affected by HIV from around the world, and we wanted to tell their story in a relatable way that our audience would tune into, and that's why we use George Michael, and that's why we always work with artists like Leona to be able to spread our message wider. And what we developed into was an organisation that found and funded young leaders like Mala, who is an ex-grantee and now sits on the board with us, who are working within their communities, within the square mile of their communities, and understanding what will best work to prevent the spread of HIV amongst their community of young people.
And I was just looking at some of the figures. I think, like throughout the almost 20 years, the MTV Stay Alive has reached like something like 208 grassroots projects, right? Something.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
no, that's exactly right.
That's correct. So, because you're really making sure that it's, you know, it's at a level that the work is being done.
We're the only organisation that finds and funds youth projects. There is no other organisation like us. And so what we do is we give small amounts of funding to young people around the world. So we'll give them up to $12,000 a year for up to 4 years. But as part of that, we give them an adult mentor, and we also train them across the 4 years. And when you have got no money at all, but you want to create an organisation, $12,000 is an enormous amount of money. So we're usually, or we insist on being the first or very near the first funder, so that $12,000 goes a really long way.
And it's going exactly to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And Mala, let's just talk a little bit about, well, obviously you're on the board now, but how you first got kind of connected with MTV Staying Alive, and you were in Cameroon, you co-founded United Vision. Tell me a little bit about United Vision and how important it was to get that funding.
I'm on the board, but I'm still very much involved in youth activism. And I first got in contact with MTV Staying Alive in 2010. I was a young, fresh out of university student, and myself and my friends we started doing some community work, but at that stage we were really just small grassroots, really no international exposure. No one really got to know what we were doing, and we're looking for ways in which we could improve our work and improve our reach. And we needed partners for that, but no one would trust us because we were young, inexperienced, small organizations, not really known anywhere. And we saw this call for proposals from MTV Staying Alive, which was like out of this world because nobody else would fund a small organization that has not really ticked the box of strong, has all the systems in place.
But if it has all the systems in place, it doesn't need as much funding. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's what most donors miss, I guess, and that's the gap that MTV Staying Alive is trying to close, because they always want to fund strong organizations that are already there. But usually this potential in young people to really bring about change in the communities is not seen. And that's where Staying Alive comes in. And they just recognize us. They were looking to invest in potential, and I guess at that time that's all we had, potential, because we didn't have really that strong, kind of support that we should have needed. And 6 years down the line, I now sit on the board, which is amazing. So Georgia is now my colleague, I guess.
I think actually you're my boss.
Time to change.
I like to look at it that way sometimes. But yeah, it was several years of capacity building, and that's the thing about Staying Alive. It's not just donor, grantee, and then they give you money and that's it, goodbye. We had several years of training and capacity building programs given to us as young persons, and today it's not just my organization that has grown as a result of Staying Alive support, but myself, professionally and personally, I can say that I'm a better person, a million times better than 2010 when I started.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And I want to welcome Leona to the MTV Staying Alive family. And we've seen people, the importance of having someone, a known figure like yourself, because you've had everyone from the late great George Michael, Kelly Rowland, and you can kind of have that reach. And I know for me, even growing up, when it comes to anything to do with like sexual health or talking about condoms, and it's all a bit like embarrassing, and especially growing up. I went to a convent, and I think I got actual sexual education from a nun, and that's a true story. And just that embarrassment, and it's kind of like breaking those boundaries and being more open, and having you involved is great because your reach is so huge. Why was it important for you to be an ambassador for this charity? Because I know you're an animal rights activist and you kind of work with a lot of other charities. Why was this important to you?
Well, I visited South Africa in 2008, and I got to see firsthand the devastating consequences of HIV. I actually visited a school out there where all of the kids were affected by either they'd lost their parents to it, or they were infected with HIV. So 2 kids in particular, I visited with them and spent a lot of time with them, and they were, I think, 3 and 5 at the time. And I went to their home and visited with their grandma and spent a lot of time with them, and it just had a very profound effect on me, seeing it firsthand. And so ever since then I've been very passionate about the cause. Last year I met Georgia at a really great event that Staying Alive put on in Dallas, where I sang. And she's amazing. She told me about all of the work, and like you, once you're in. So I was in.
outside.
Exactly, the chains are out. No, but she's amazing, and the work that they're doing are amazing. So I wanted to really get involved.
And how important is, Georgia, having someone like Leona Lewis and her reach? Because that's the great thing about this charity is the platform. And I know looking at some figures, and I was talking about just even having MTV as a brand, and just I know through all its sister channels can get to like 65% of TV homes. And I know you've got the TV show as well. How important is it to get those ambassadors to kind of keep the message out there?
Oh, it's essential for us. I mean, first of all, we have the MTV brand to use, which means that we have the platform, which is phenomenal. But also, the MTV audience expect talent, right? That's why they tune into MTV. So for us to be able to work hand in hand with talent, and also the way that TV works these days is it's not one single platform. You've got Instagram, you've got Snapchat, you've got Facebook, Twitter, everything. So we need to make sure that not only are we on the MTV platforms, but we can work with Leona's audience directly, because Leona can now talk directly to her audience about the work that we do. That's hugely important for us. And you know, for me, what you were saying earlier on about getting your sex education for a nun.
But and it was kind of seen, it was like she was embarrassed, so we
Yeah,
were
absolutely.
everyone was embarrassed. So we just get it over done with. I was confused to how you had sex afterwards. I have to be honest, I didn't really learn anything, and it's that kind of confusion. It's all because I think communication is probably key for most things.
Well, to me, you know, my ambition is to get people around the world to talk openly about sex. And so, because it is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for a nun, but I am a mother of an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
It's still, as a very liberal parent, it's still embarrassing to talk about sex with your child. So how do we break down these barriers? And one of the ways we can do that is by using amazing people like Leona, and then working directly in the communities by working with Mala as well.
Each of you ladies are award-winning in your own fields, and what I love, because we're talking about like International Women's Day, that we're all very different women. We're from different backgrounds and different nationalities, and maybe have different beliefs, maybe not, but you know, we're all still women, and it's still the basic kind of, you know, when it comes to sex and how we feel about things, and I kind of, with staying alive over the years, and particularly in Great Britain and talking to my friends, HIV doesn't seem to be an issue that it used to be. And the sad thing is, you go to Africa and it is.
Yeah.
And it takes something so simple to make it not be a problem. Georgia, where do you see, you know, staying alive building the next 10 years? Do you think eventually, you know, that we can tackle this completely? It'll just be gone.
Unfortunately, I don't think it will be gone. And it won't be gone for a lot of reasons. So first of all, HIV is a huge issue, particularly amongst our demographic of 15 to 25-year-olds, particularly amongst young girls, right? So across Africa, 75% of all new infections every day are among young girls. And the reason it's not going away is the funding is disappearing through governments and also through individual donations, because people don't think it's an issue anymore.
So is that making things harder because people don't think it's as big an issue as it was maybe in the 80s? Or
complacency is the biggest problem that HIV faces. So that's a real problem for us. But also, although the treatment is good, across Africa, I mean, we were having this discussion earlier today, across Africa what you access are first and second and third generation drugs at best. But here in the West, you might access 8th or 9th generation drugs. So once your body decides it doesn't like a series of drugs that you may have been on for 10 years, you can go on to the next lot of drugs. The reason that the death rate amongst adolescents has increased by 50% in the last 10 years is because across Africa, the kids who are born with HIV, so those 2 young kids that you met in South Africa, they're not getting beyond second or third generation drugs, and it means by the time they're becoming 16 or 17, they've got nowhere to go in terms of drug treatment, and that's why they're dying. It's a huge issue, and it's a very quiet issue that no one really knows about.
I want to talk about just being a woman in 2017. We've got 3 very strong ladies here, and I was raised by a single mother and got told there's nothing that I couldn't do, and I could kind of go off and achieve my dreams. And I recently made a trip out to Africa in Kenya, and I remember asking a girl what she wanted to do when she grew up, and she was like, well, I'll have to mind the kids, because I'm not going to be, my brother will get third level education, I won't, because I'm a girl. And that was her answer, because I am a girl. And I kind of live in my little bubble of London, and life is great, and there's nothing I can't do, and you know, I have little obstacles during the day, I don't know what to wear, and little silly things bog you down, and then you kind of thought, wow, you know, because of your gender, it can stop you doing things that I wouldn't even think that I would be stopped doing. Leona, how do you feel when you went to Africa, and just, did you ever have any experiences when you thought, whoa, like, there are so many injustices in the world, and you read about it, but until you see it, you don't ever really know what it's all about?
Yeah, when I went, like I said, it was devastating seeing the consequences. And in the West, we're very lucky. You know, girls and boys are treated relatively equal, and I feel that it's just important to remember that. And there are a lot of other issues going on over there that need to be tackled. But still, there are still issues here, which is why all the marches have happened.
Well, let's talk about that, because with the marches and the amount of people that turned up compared to what we expected, there's something beautiful in that, especially with women and men as well, everyone together, because it's not, you know, the amount of men there to kind of support women too. What do you feel, Mala, it is to be a woman in 2017? That's a very open question, isn't it?
I'm not sure. To me, I think because every day as a woman from Cameroon, as a young woman from Cameroon, there's so many tags and stereotypes held about me, and I'm supposed to carry all these tags around just because I'm a woman. And living as a woman in 2017 means I should resist them. So I resist all the tags every day. Where I come from, I think generally people think that I hold very unconventional beliefs about who I'm supposed to be.
So what's an unconventional belief?
I know, like, I don't necessarily think that I'll be less of a woman if a baby is not grabbing my nipples for milk, for example. I don't value marriage as much as I'm supposed to, because I'm female. I'm supposed to, pop babies out, breastfeed, be the housewife and things like that. And so I think carrying these unconventional beliefs and challenging them every day, challenging guys in the streets who can call me, and then I'm supposed to smile and be coy just because, someone said nice things about me. And I say it's bullshit, and I carry that with me every day. To me, that's a good way of resisting, in my own small way, but it's very loud, in my opinion.
And what about you, Georgia? What's it mean to be a woman in 2017, especially someone who co-founded this 20 years ago? And you can probably see, I know myself, even in the last 10 years, like women and women empowerment has changed a lot. What for you? How do you feel in 2017? Where are we now?
Where are we now?
Yeah.
I think for me there's a real, so I've got an 18-year-old boy, and so I've brought him up, I hope, to understand what equal means, equality. But I think there's a real difference from my perspective to Mala's perspective, perhaps, in terms of what I have always fought for or strive for in terms of equality, which is really important. But I have, the issues that I may face as a woman here growing up are very different to perhaps in the rural areas of Cameroon growing up, where if you are a girl, then your dad will want to sell you for an early marriage, right? Because you effectively become money, or you're likely not to get an education. So for me, it's really important to always see a global perspective on it, rather than what are my problems here, which, range from, the way that someone may or may not catcall me in the street and how I respond to that, which I totally agree with you, but there's also that bigger global picture for me that I always want to fight against.
We've got lots of questions that guys at Facebook, this is Facebook, hi Facebook, have been sending in. You can still send in #SAFWomen. I'm going to ask a question now. We've got, who helped you feel empowered whilst growing up and during difficult times? Leona.
I'm lucky. I'm surrounded by a lot of empowered females. My mom is one of them, like your mom. She's just such a strong influence in my life. So I feel like she was my aunties as well. I grew up around have a big family. So yeah, probably my mom and my aunties helped me feel the most empowered.
What about you?
Okay, I'm going to give a slightly opposite answer to
Okay.
that. I rebelled against my dad in particular.
Why?
By becoming an empowered woman.
Okay.
So I'm one of 3 girls. I'm a very typical middle child, and I always felt that my dad is quite conservative, and would happily have us all married off nicely, right, to lovely men who will look after us, and having a career was not his number one priority for any of us. And so my rebellion was to have a different political opinion to him, which I definitely still do, but also to have a career. And he helped me shape that without realising it. Hi, Dad.
Probably didn't do it intentionally either.
No, definitely not. And now, he looks at me, and I know he is so proud of me and what I have achieved. But he would never have that was not his ambition when all 3 of us were born.
I remember meeting this when I was in Kenya, meeting this guy, and it was his daughter's graduation. It was the first time girls had graduated from the school, and he was crying. And I think 5 years previously he had tried to take his daughter from the school to get married, to marry her off. And it wasn't, from his point of view, he thought it was the best thing to do, because he thought that he was going to provide for her, as in he couldn't afford, she wasn't going to earn enough money herself. The best way is to marry her off and she'd have the money. And then 5 years later, here she was graduating, going to get a job and going to do it for herself, and he was crying. And sometimes it's not, you just kind of have to change their mindset a little bit without them realising. That's kind of what you do. Mala, what about you? What strong women or men kind of shaped you into being the woman you are today?
My mom was she was a very strong woman. Unfortunately, she died quite early, before I was much of a strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think my dad is one of the strongest figures I have in my life. Because as a man and as an African father, you would expect that he would hold all these stereotypes about who you should be.
Yeah.
And he has totally challenged all of them, and he's like my number one fan and my number one supporter. And you know, I've never felt the pressures of society from him. So I feel very blessed to have someone like him in my life.
It's lovely. Question here. Oh, this is crazy. What scares you the most? What scares you the most? That's very. Oh, thank you for the question.
Other than spiders.
Spiders. Well, I suppose, particularly 2016, and you know, political landscape, and there's a lot of kind of scary things happening in the world. But and that's kind of scary. But then you see things like the women marching, that many people coming together. But do you live in a scary world now?
In relation to the conversation that we're having now, what scares me the most is that I've been talking to a lot of my friends about being an ambassador for MTV Staying Alive, and a lot of them have turned around and said, "Oh, but I thought that kind of the HIV thing had kind of gone away, and what?" And I was like, "No, it's still what's it #1 killer in sub-Saharan Africa,
and #2 globally.
And #2 globally
Of young people.
And when it's shocking, so that scares me the most, that people are not talking about it anymore, and that's why I wanted to get involved."
It's brilliant.
I think for me to continue that, and not to get too political, but I think that the political landscape at the moment is very scary, because there is going to be less funding for HIV, and there is going to be less funding for family planning issues.
Yeah.
So more young people, more young girls are going to end up pregnant with no access to information, no way to get legal abortions, and no way to get protection from HIV, and all of that. You know, Trump's global gag rule, which is withdrawing funding from family planning clinics globally because of the word abortion. You can't even mention it, but that just has an impact on everything to do with a girl, everything. So even getting your children vaccinated in northern Nigeria for polio will be impacted, because Mary Stopes International no longer can get funding from the US government, so they can't go out and vaccinate mums, right? And that's just because of one word, and that really does scare me about what will happen in the future for girls.
Do you think though there is some, like, it is scary, and kind of everything that I've read, and you kind of go, oh, where's the world going to end up? But you do see things like the Women's March, and you think, no, there's a lot of us, and there's a lot of people who are standing up and saying things aren't okay. Do you feel like this is something that, you know, no one's going to sit down and just take it, you know, people are going to fight?
The best thing about today's scary political environment is the activism that comes out of it.
And social media and people.
It's amazing. I was actually, when the Women's March happened, I was in South Africa, and I was in Johannesburg, and I looked and there wasn't a march in Johannesburg, which really interested me, given that's like the country where marches and protests came from. But I was watching it on social media, and I was watching it on TV. You couldn't take my phone away from me, and I was so uplifted by the one loud hailer voice of women around the world, all marching at the same time, all around the world, except in Johannesburg. It did have some marches in South Africa, but not there. Yeah. And that is really exciting, is because if actually we had someone who was a bit more vanilla as a president, then everyone would just accept it.
Yeah.
And I hope, what I really hope for is that these marches and this activism and this involvement in politics continues.
Mala, what scares you?
I think quite in line with what Georgia said, but looking at it from a very grassroots perspective. I have worked in a community at one point where I met a woman who had just given birth. It was like her 12th child or whatever. And right after she gave birth to the 12th baby, then the doctor just like took out her womb and said, you know, this is okay. And then I was asking myself, like, did we have to get to this point? Like, she had absolutely no control over her own body. She didn't have the power to decide if she wants to have a child or not, whether, when, how many. And with the current political atmosphere, I'm really worried that it's going to get only worse. It's only going to get worse.
It's hard to believe it. I look back at my mother's generation and say I grew up with just my mom, and when I grew up in Ireland, I was the only one in my class whose parents weren't together. So I was like, now it's completely normal. But I remember my mother is the youngest of 13 children, and because during that stage condoms weren't in Ireland, it was just it didn't happen. So Granny had 13 children, and my mom has one child, and that's just one generation how things can change. So where do you think, Georgia, where are we going to be in 30 years' time with women? And because I kind of look what happened in Ireland, and now it repealed the age. I don't know if you know about like abortion, trying to make it legal in Ireland, because at the moment a lot of people are making trips to the UK and it's not as safe. And I just see in the Irish landscape how much has changed in such a short amount of time that it gives me hope for Africa, and it gives me hope for other countries where we haven't reached to the stage we are now.
I think when we talk about 30 years' time, it's actually really hard to say, because actually what it only needs is a moment in time where you've got some amazing leadership for everything to change. So
not doing so well at the moment then.
But it could be in, I'd like to say 4 years' time, but maybe that within the next decade we get some amazing leadership around the world. Angela Merkel becomes the UN Secretary General. I'll campaign for her. That would be amazing. But you know, to really bring in some different leadership, that then suddenly means that there is more funding going back into issues around girls. And that would be brilliant. 30 years down the line is hard to say, I think. But I hope that it's about strong leadership that can change things.
And even for me, I know growing up as a teenage girl, I got so much of my education through music, through song lyrics, through like, you know, I'd listen to a song and be like, yeah, she knows exactly what I mean. And it is, and that's kind of where, my mother doesn't understand me, but you know, Alanis Morissette does. How important for you when you're, you know, as a songwriter and stuff like that, because you are a role model as well. Do you feel that? Do you feel that responsibility that you have with, especially your young fan base?
Yeah, and I love hearing from young women and girls that have related to my music and will write to me or message me about what my songs mean to them. And the other day I actually saw a girl perform one of my songs called Happy on The Voice, which was amazing, and she messaged me, and the lyrics in that song are very empowering, they're very brave and courageous, and I love hearing girls singing those songs. It inspires me. So, and the same, like Alanis Morissette inspired my life. So it's I have a lot of people reaching out to me in that way and saying that the lyrics have touched them or have helped them and empowered them, and that's so fulfilling for me as an artist.
Yeah, brilliant. We have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to actually, does any questions in the audience? We have a lovely audience here. If anyone wants to ask a question? Yeah, over here.
You're all such driven women. What advice would you give to anyone out there who has any self-doubt?
I think, first of all, every woman has self-doubt all the time. But what would you say, Leona, to anyone who would approach you?
For me personally, I really try and stay outside of my comfort zone, because that's the only place that I feel like I have growth and I can really see what I'm made of. And I always say you should do one thing that scares you every day. And I have doubts and sometimes days where I wake up and I'm like, no, I can't do this. But then I just remember the position I'm in, and I remember that I, just motivate myself to do what I want to do and to push myself and to grow, and to, just be more empowered.
You've done so many things already with your life. I run out of scary things to do. What can I do now that I haven't done yet? Is there a list? Still a long list?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a laundry list. No.
I've done that. I highly recommend it.
Have you done it?
Yeah, it's great fun. I do what you do. I try to do things that scare
I
me.
can't even stick my head out the window of a car. I don't know how I
You should range maybe for staying alive. Maybe that's something.
I've been raised in money.
Not on my watch. Something else.
What about you?
Actually, thank you. That was exactly what I would say. I mean, I remember my very first job, and I went for an interview, and the guy said, well, when can you start? And I said, now. I said, I just go to the toilet first. And I looked in the mirror, which I think is always important if you've got self-doubt. And I did the munch scream. I went like that. And I was so scared. And I went, right, fine, I'll go and do it. But actually, walking into this room today, I was sort of like that, because it is about putting yourself out your comfort zone. That's where you learn.
Yeah.
And my thing has always been, it's okay to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. Probably because I've made several along the way, quite big ones. And so that's how you learn, is by not doing the day-to-day normal. So, but what Leona said, basically.
Mala?
I challenge myself every day, and I challenge my thinking and my thought processes, and I try to unlearn the many things that I've learned that I shouldn't have learned. To me, that's a good way to look to the future and move forward.
I remember when I first started presenting for MTV, and I remember the first day having to interview Coldplay, and I'd never interviewed anyone before in my life. But I was like, they don't know that I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, if I just pretend I know what I'm doing, they'll have no idea. And then I realised one day that nobody knows what they're doing. And I remember interviewing a big artist before, and they seemed nervous. I was like, why are they nervous? And I realised they were out of their comfort zone because they were used to being on stage singing and not being interviewed. And then that was the day I realised none of us know what we're doing. So we're all in trouble. Is there another question? Yeah, over here.
What's one thing that you think everybody should do to advance women's rights and female empowerment?
I feel like I said, I've always been surrounded by very strong women in my life that are very supportive to me. So I think the most important thing is to support each other and to really support each other to be brave, courageous, and to use your voice when you need to.
She's done it.
I like that's what she said, really.
What she said, use your voice, I think, however you use it, whether you have a good voice or not, you should use it.
And there is, even just sitting here with you ladies, like, and, you know, everyone's comes from very different backgrounds and different jobs, but we're all women supporting each other, and there's something lovely in that.
Yeah.
And I think there's this stereotype, I know even just growing up as a kid, and you'd say, you know, girls can be bitchy and we can be, you know, mean girls, and we kind of need to get rid of that mentality because we're so much stronger when we're together and helping each other. Yeah? Okay, well, sadly that's it for now, but I want to thank everyone for being here in the room with us, and everyone who's watched online on Facebook and Instagram and wherever you are. And I'd like to thank Leona for joining the MTV Staying Alive family, and now you never leave. And thank G, as I like to call her, for always being brilliant and fighting the fight. And I've seen you at MTV Europe Music Awards, where like people are like partying, having fun, and you're like, who can I get to help me do this? Who can I get to do this? So constantly working. And Mala, I've read a lot of your blogs as well, so I recommend reading Mala's blogs, and just everything that you're doing, and congratulations, and still kind of working at that grassroots level, but then also being on the board too. So great to meet you today as well. And thank you to everyone for the questions. Sorry for the questions we didn't get asked, but send them in anyway, and we'll try and answer them. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.